Good morning. Welcome to Joy News X. We're live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125 across all our social media handles. We're Joy News on TV. You can listen to us around the world on myjoyonline.com. Coming up, Afrobarometer identifies trend of increase in violence, tarnishing the much heralded democracy reputation of Ghana. Stay for details of that.
Elections are free and fair. That tends to lead to greater satisfaction with democracy. When government officials, especially senior public officials, are held accountable, again, greater satisfaction with democracy.
Also in this bulletin, AC Agbozo endorses appointment of COP Yohunu as Deputy IGP.
There's no link, in my opinion, there's no link between that leaked tape report and what the president has done. Whatever is in that leaked tape, the report is with the president. He can do anything he wants to do with it.
We'll hear from him in this bulletin. Also, ending the mass exodus abroad for education. We'll hear from an expert on how to locally maximize opportunities. There's business as well as sports in this package. My name is Faustina Safo. Take a seat. Be my guest. Thanks for choosing us for your home of independent, fearless, incredible journalism. Now, a new Afrobarometer report on African insights, democracy, shows the much touted tag of Ghana being the beacon of democracy in the African continent is currently under serious attack. And the country risks losing this position if immediate measures are not taken to seal the bottlenecks. Now, the report also says there is a growing trend of media stifling, erosion of accountability of institutions in Ghana under President Akufo-Addo.
On the political side, there are again some positive as well as negative, drivers. When elections are free and fair, that tends to lead to greater satisfaction with democracy. When government officials, especially senior public officials, are held accountable, when they break the law, again, greater satisfaction with democracy. But when the ordinary people, and this one is not significant anyway, so I'll skip it. But I think two of the negative drivers of satisfaction in democracy are corruption, especially among officials in the public, in the president's office, as well as at the local government level, and this tends to have negative effects, negative relations with the democratic satisfaction. Moving on, I think to look at drivers in change, in support for democracy. On this one, I think the economic drivers really are all not significantly related to support for democracy. The main, I think, drivers of support for democracy are, I think, political. And this includes, again, free and fair elections, holding a government, individuals accountable for their actions, especially public officials, as well as, I think, ordinary citizens when also being held accountable when they are, they break the law. But more importantly, also, when the government, local government councillors are corrupt, that tends to have, in terms of corruption, local government councillors especially tends to have a negative effect on support for democracy. And this is quite interesting because local government councillors are, much, much closer to the citizens on the ground.
Well, let's get on the phone lines now and speak to Palgrave Boachi Dankwa. He's government spokesperson for governance and security. Thank you for your time here on NewsDesk. Later in the bulletin, we'll have Victor Doke. He's a security analyst. Now, let's start with you, Palgrave, because this report is quite worrying. It says that there is a growing trend of media stifling under this government. How do you respond to that?
To your listeners and viewers, I don't think this report is accurate on a number of reasons. The Afrobarometer report that has come out that there's a media trend. There's no evidence to that effect, and I think that the Ghanaian people should be restrained in their interpretation of the report that has come. It will be good for us to be able to understand and appreciate the methodology that has been used in arriving at these percentages, so that we can be able to have a liking scale and a broader conversation on that. We are aware how we have allowed people to express their views and opinions, and the freedom within which people are able to express their views and opinions to that effect.
Let's look at another portion that says that Ghana's much-touted democracy is under threat. You feel otherwise?
I do feel otherwise. You know, Ghana has become the basin of peace, especially in this Fourth Republic. I'm just coming out of a meeting whilst we were discussing the Peruvian independence. Peruvian has been having stable independence for over 200 years, and as they prepare to celebrate their 200th year, they are looking at Ghana as a model, because if you look at where we have come from, going through the First Republic, going to the Second Republic, having an unstable democracy with the military regime for about 2 decades, then coming to the Third Republic, and now the Fourth Republic, which has become a beacon of our democracy since 1992 to date, and surrounded with all the military junters from Burkina Faso to Mali to Niger and all the terrorist attacks. I disagree to an extent on the threat of democracy, because Ghana's democracy has become so solid and has become so much of a model for other countries to observe and admire.
Now, let me bring in Mavis Dome. She is the National Investigative She's in the National Investigative Department of the Ghana Afrobarometer Survey, which is CDD Ghana. Thank you so much for your time here on NewsDesk. First off, let's understand the sample size and how you collated this data, because the concern being raised now is about the credibility of this data you've published.
Good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
Good morning.
So Afrobarometer surveys started in 1999, and Ghana is one of the countries that was first surveyed. The report that we released the day before yesterday looks at all the countries we have surveyed over this period since 1999 till date on democracy. And so the data that we collect is for every country is nationally representative. We use a nationally representative sample, and that to say is representative to the population. So we collect the data across the country, and we use the population ratio of each region to collect the data. And the data, we also use the rural-urban population distribution to also distribute our sample. So our sample is nationally representative and proportionate to the national population. We use a sample size of 2,400 for our surveys, and this at a 95 confidence level. We get a minus or plus 2 margin of error. So in terms of social science statistics-wise, our sample is representative enough. Our sample is representative. Our sample is big enough to be able to say these are the views of Ghanaians. Now, we do not collect the data from just maybe elites or let's say just anybody. We collect the data from Ghanaians who are from the voting age, that is 18 years and above. And any Ghanaian is have equal chance of being selected. By that, what do I mean? We use random sampling even at the point of our sample unit. We use the Ghana Statistical Service enumeration areas, for which Ghana Statistical Service gratefully assists us in sampling them randomly. So we just don't pick anything. We use statistical method to select the enumeration areas. It doesn't matter which area is selected, we have to go there. And when you get there, there's a random technique for getting to your respondent. The only purposive thing in our sampling is male-female. We give equal representation of male-female in our sample. So equal now, 50% males are interviewed, 50% females are interviewed. But everything is, apart from that being the purposive, just to have equal views of male and female in the population, everything is proportionate to the national and urban and rural distribution of our population. And respondents we use random technique to select our respondents.
Let's get into the substantive issue, which is the findings. We start from democracy. What did you find? Break down your data for me.
Thank you. So when it comes to democracy, for most of the issues that we track in democracy, we see a decline over time. And that is the worrying trend that we are talking about. When we look at the support for democracy over time and the rejection of all other forms of rules, the support for democracy have dropped.
Let's be specific. When you see over time, what time frame are you referring to? And with the drop, how many percentage drop?
So it's been high for the longest while, and the drop, just a second, let me just refer to my data to give you the accurate number before.
We'll come to you for the accurate data. If you just tune in, we're discussing the recent Afrobarometer report that spells doom for Ghana democracy. We're just getting exact data so that we can put the conversation in perspective. Pargrid Dankwa is also with us. I'll be coming to him shortly for his reaction. But Mavis, are you ready for us now?
Yes.
Beautiful. So please, let's have the figures.
Okay. So if you look at the democratic trend, we see that from round 7, that is 2017, the figures have, so let me just even go as far as 2012. The figures have dropped from 86%, and now we are at 76%, so that's a margin of 10. If you look at, let's say, a 10-year span from 2012 to 2022, that's a 10-year span, we have a drop of 10%.
Let's look at the trend you monitored when it comes to media stifling. I'm very interested in that. What did you find?
So with that one too, when you look at support for media freedom, we find that there is increasing support for media freedom. The only worry then is the fact that when you talk of media freedom, whether the media are able to report freely is where usually where the drops to are. Yeah.
Okay, so what did you find specifically within the trend you monitored? So give a specific percentage. So probably within January till date, what did you find in your survey?
Okay, let me just. You said January?
Yes, January till date.
No. Like as I said, our data is not from January. We have we collect our data every 2 years.
Okay, beautiful.
Right.
So as at the time you collected this data, tell us what you found.
Okay. So it shows that for media.
Okay, while she's getting
Just
that.
give me a second, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I want to give you right figures, not just.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let me come back to Palgrave Dankwa. You have been disputing the credibility of this report, and she has just given us a breakdown of how they got their data, the sample size, and she breaks down in terms of percentage decrease in Ghana's democracy outlook. What's your initial reaction to that?
So you see, I'm not disputing the results. What I'm disputing and challenging is that Mavis says that they had a sample size of about 2,400 and they are using the voting population across the country. My simple mathematics is telling me if you look at the voting population of about 18 million, it means that they sampled a percentage of that is 0.01333%. It's very, very inconsequential. So if you do a 2,400 sample size of an 18 million population and you bring out these percentages, you're causing fear and panic because it's not a representation of what the Ghanaian people are thinking about. You need to increase your sample size a little bit more. Give about a 50%. Do about 9 million people. Do about 10 million people. But if you do a percentage of about 0.01333%, you are causing fear and panic. I appreciate research. I value research. It helps with policy directions. But you can't do a research with a methodology like that and juxtapose that as a total representation of what the Ghanaian people are thinking about. And which is why I would want to discredit the percentages that they have put here, because it will cause unnecessary fear and panic. And that's not a full representation of what the Ghanaian people are thinking about. You talk about percentage of satisfaction of democracy, and you do your research every 2 years, and you state that from 2011 and 2013 it's dropped from 74% to 51%, which is a drop of about 23%. But if you look at 2011 and 2013, why don't you tell us what sample you got in terms of the percentages you got from 2019 to 2021? You go back 10 years ago. So it becomes a bit of a challenge, really, in wanting to appreciate the level within which our democracy is either decaying or our democracy is deteriorating. So it's not an accurate representation. And if you look at the Likens scales, really, as is happening within our space, after having a stable democracy, and this is one of the longest, the most stable democracies that we have had after the Third Republic. This is the Fourth Republic, and we have gone almost 32 years into this republic. We've had successive elections. We've had transition of power from one government onto another government with very, very minimal challenges. The people have had challenges. They've had to use the state agencies like the court to be able to bring their issues to bear. You look at security, and I'm involved in security. You look at security, and in the security environment, I think that the data that is put out is that percentage of samples should the military intervene in politics, and then you have done a percentage of they can intervene if the leaders abuse power 40%. Never intervene 55%, neutral 5%, but you are sampling 2,400 people out of 18 million people, and which is a percentage of 0.01333%. You talk about is Ghana heading in the right direction? 87% say no, 11% say yes, and 2% are neutral. But you have done a 2,400 sample size out of an 18 million voting population size. It's inconsequential. It's a 0.0133%. And so I will ask that if we want to have an accurate conversation and an accurate representation of what the Ghanaian people are feeling, increase your sample size. Don't be afraid of that. Increase your sample size. And you realize that when you increase your sample size, your Afrobarometer percentages will change.
Stay with me, Palgrave. Let me bring back Mavis, because you were getting some data for us. Mavis, first off, tell us what you found in your data about the media trend, and then respond directly to Palgrave. Is raising concerns about the sample size you chose for this survey?
Actually, yes, right, because it's quite immediate. So, first of all, in social science, at a point, we would reach a saturation, and it doesn't matter if you interviewed 10,000, you are going to reach a saturation on the views, summarizing the views, you're going to reach a saturation when it comes to your margin of error in terms of how accurate you would be. And basically, we are saying that if you use our technique, if you use the technique, and then you draw your sample 10 times, right? About 9 times, because it's 95, so I don't want to say 10 times. I'll use just about 9 times. You are going to get the figures we got, and the figures variations are only going to be between a plus or minus 2, right? That is what we are saying. Now, the thing is this, that we are not saying that Ghana is not doing well when it comes to democracy. When it comes to democracy, we are doing well.
Okay.
People still demand democracy.
Okay. So maybe I'll have to come in at this time.
Let me finish. It's not that people do not demand democracy. People demand democracy. People want democracy. But if you look at the drop in, right, in people saying that they demand for democracy, right, there's a drop. The demand for democracy is dropping.
Okay,
and
maybe point well noted. You've made this point initially. I just wanted us to wrap up because there's a lot of things we would like to look at in that report. So you were getting figures for us when it comes to the media trend. Run us through that quickly. And then also you raised a question in your report about if the people would like the military to take over governance. Why would you ask such a question in a report?
So if you look at the worrying trend around the issues of democracy, we all know that there have been so far some time now, we have been experiencing democracy backsliding across the African continent. This is not just about Ghana. Afrobarometer surveys we survey 40 countries. And so, therefore, and we have seen even military coup in other countries. The question is, are people fed up with democracy? Do they want something else? And the question of whether people reject military rule or not is one thing. But as to what are the people's view around military takeover? That is basically it. Do they want the military to take over for good, or they just wonder if the country is not stable, military can take over and reset and give it back to democratic rule. So basically, we ask that question, right? So we ask that question to assess that.
Let me bring in Victor Doke before you tell us the details of that, because in subsequent bulletin, we'll be unpacking this Afrobarometer report, and we'll take it segment by segment from polls to the midday news to Joy News Prime. So you need to stick and stay to the Joy News channel. But let me bring in Victor Doke. He's a security analyst, and we're bringing it in to bring perspective. When you put into the minds of the Ghanaian people this question, would they prefer military rule to that of governance, democracy? Do you think it's a wrong trajectory to go?
No, it is not wrong. It is good at every time to understand and assess what is going on so that you can take measures, preventive measures.
Okay.
So
maybe
maybe
that question was for Victor. I'm hoping I have him with me on the line.
Okay. All right.
Yes, please. Victor, please respond to that question for me.
Yes, good morning, and good morning to the speakers and then your viewers. So first of all, to ask whether people prefer military rule or not, for the purposes of research, in my personal opinion, I think it should have come out in a different form, not directly with what was put out there if they prefer military rule, because we've experienced our neighboring, sister states, Mali, Burkina Faso, we have Guinea, we have Niger, having a military junta in place. Now, you could attest, even Ghana has experienced some form of military rule in the past. What has been the result, okay? Nobody wants the military takeover where freedom and justice will be curtailed in some ways. So I think the question should have been put in a different form, but directly, if they prefer military rule, would now sort of like bring a sense of awareness. You know, we have a teeming youth in the country. The youth bulge is very real. It is very evident. We've had stories where youths have openly declared their support for armed groups such as Wagner and Takrady, and were arrested. Recently, some 4 young guys were arrested for having declared that they are what? Armed robbers. Now, these are just examples of what I'm about to say. When you have a direct question like that, if you prefer a military rule, it sends some kind of message to those youths who are out there, unemployed, are already frustrated, and are exhibiting aggressive behaviors. Okay? This will only imbibe in them, their psyche, okay, that we should go in for a military rule. Right? And we all know the process that starts with a military takeover. And if we are not careful, it will just end up destabilizing our fragile democracy.
Thank you, Victor. Let me come back to Mavis as we wrap up on this conversation, because we'll be unpacking this report in subsequent bulletins. But Mavis, your quick response to Dr. Victor's concern about the way the question was framed. And then you haven't given us the media trend analysis, what you found in your data.
I will do that very soon.
Okay, please.
So the question that we asked is basically, should the Ghana Armed Forces never intervene in the country's political process? And these have been ongoing discussions, which right now we have gotten to a point where Ghana, at least we have gotten somewhere, but we still need, over time, we need citizens' view into policies. The second statement is it legitimate for the armed forces to take over control of the government when elected leaders abuse power to their own end? We have 55% saying army should never intervene, and we have 40% saying they can intervene when
we seem to be losing you, Mavis.
Power.
Okay.
Now, so these are things that tells you really what people are thinking. And our surveys are aimed at giving information to inform what policy, inform discussion, inform intervention. So if you say we are rather creating incitement, this is already evidence that these are what are on people's mind. And there is a need for us to start discussing around these issues. So we shouldn't look at it on the rather that, oh, it's rather going to create incite certain actions. No, that is not how we should look at it.
Let me wrap up with Victor. Dr. Victor, thank you. Let's just look at what the implications are moving into the December elections. Some of these reports, how they could influence even manifesto outcomes and how government should look at things.
It will influence manifestos or whatever you call it, and then government decisions particularly. Now, going into 2024, for the past weeks, I've been involved in discussions concerning resilient and independent state institutions, okay, towards sustaining development and enhancing the peace and security. So what should be done is for us to see evidently that the state institutions are independent, right, without any interference from powers that be. It is very crucial, 5 months or less to the elections. Every Ghanaian wants to see that every state institution, security actors are independent, okay, where they exhibit a moral uprightness when it comes to their mandate, neutrality, and then this will enhance the people to have trust in them. Already, the people are questioning some actions of state institutions. For example, the EC, the police service, and whatnot. This is the time to build a consensus with the people and the security actors and state institutions at large, not forgetting the stakeholders who are into politics, the governing side also. We need to ensure that every practice, every approach that we implement has the people by it, for the people, to the benefit of the people. Other than that, we'll just be doing something, we'll come back and then regret. Every Ghanaian wants to ensure that they can go out and vote peacefully without any intimidation from any personnel, from any state institutions. I think it is high time that we educate and sensitize the people, create an awareness for them to look out for what they should view as per their basic human rights, human needs to go out there and vote. The state institutions, whether they need capacity or enhancement or the cards of knowledge or whatever, we should also provide it for them. Election management bodies have to ensure that their dealings, their events or whatever has to be free and fair, neutral. This way, the people will have trust in you. And when the results are declared, everybody is going to accept it and then go by the rules. Other than that, we'll just be creating a big problem for ourselves.
Let me wrap up with Palgrave Dankwa. You've seen this report. You have criticized the report. But is this something you're considering moving forward into the December polls, some of the concerns raised?
So Mavis needs to do a lot more work, because if you sample 2,400 people out of a voting population of an approximately 18 million people, that's about 0.01333%. And I can appreciate her saturation that she's talking about, but your saturation would only come in when you have sampled half of the population, about 9 million, and you have done your regression and realized that every single statement that is coming is representative of everyone. If you have about 35% out of the 50% giving the same results, that's where you raise saturation. But you can't raise saturation with 2,400 people. And so I would state that the Afrobarometer report is not a full representation of what the Ghanaian people are thinking and saying. And I would also conclude by saying that when they conclude by stating that the president and Akufo-Addo has gone increasingly heavy-handed, stifling the media and eroding accountability to institutions, it's not what is representative. I would ask for them to render an apology on this conclusion that they have made on the president, because that's not what is representative in Ghana. The president is not stiff-handed, is not intimidating the media. Everybody is having an opportunity to express their views and their opinion. 2,400 people cannot represent an 18 million population of voting people in the country. It's a 0.01333%. They should do a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. Dr. Victor and Palgrave Dankwa, as well as Mavis. We're taking a quick break here on Newsdesk. We'll be back with more. To stay tuned in. Thanks for staying with us. Now, in recent years, there has been a notable exodus of Ghanaian youth seeking greener pastures and higher education abroad. Now, this is sometimes driven by perceived hardships and limited opportunities at home. However, is abandoning the ship the only answer? Did you know that you can improve your CV and access better job opportunities locally and globally, all from the comfort of your home? Well, Dr. Eric Minta, he's the visionary founder of Global Elite Path Consulting. He joins us in the studio to address whether the desire to travel without the right skills or certification is the best approach to achieving success. Thank you for your time here on Newsdesk. Let's start with that question. Traveling without skills, education, is that the best approach if you want to achieve success as a young person?
No. I think it's good to travel and have some form of education, right? So then when you go, you can actually compete with the job market out there, because I believe Ghanaians and the people in Africa are very smart, and they can, and we are needed out there to be able to fill these competitive positions. But if you are not educated, then you are forced to do something that doesn't really, that even you yourself wouldn't even like it, right? So yeah, so I believe before you leave Ghana, you strategically plan in terms of education, right? So that you can be able to go in there and then do the right things. And
So education is still the key,
yeah,
is it?
yes.
So if I'm a young person, how do I improve my CV? If I'm looking at in Ghana or even traveling outside the country, is it something I can do at home?
Yes, you can do it at home, but sometimes it's good to seek professional help.
Okay.
Right? So then we can strategically align you to these professional jobs or companies out there, right? So I think that is one aspect that is lacking with our youth in the society right now, that they don't know how to professionally align themselves, which is knowing how to build their CV and making it look reflect the experiences that they've had, right? Which companies are even need it out there. So yes, seeking professional help, career services, right, to be able to help you to align yourself towards these positions. Yeah.
But how available are these career services, especially here in Ghana? You've been outside the country for decades, but back at home, we don't have those services readily available to us.
So that is the gap that we seek to fill, that consultancy firms seek to fill, because there's a gap between going to school. I feel like African students or Ghanaian students specifically they are very brilliant, they are very knowledgeable, they know what you're about, they go to the schools and get the degrees, but there's a difference between going to the school, getting the degree, and then professionally aligning yourself to attract the positions that are out there, right, to be able to get a very good job. So mostly I say there are two students that can go to the same school, the same professors, the same classroom, but the marketing and then the way to market yourself to get a position will be different. So I tell students that going to school is one thing, and getting a job is also another thing, right? So you need that skill set, and that is the gap we seek to fill, to be able to professionally align our students so that they can compete for these jobs out there.
But you're having an event, we'll get into that shortly. But tell me, as a young person, if I'm looking to improve my CV, do I necessarily have to travel out of Ghana? Or can I do it at the comfort of my home?
Yeah, you can do it at the comfort of your home, but it comes with the knowledge. Do you even have the knowledge to be able to do it? So yes, you can do it. You can read, you can, seek advices from your professors in school. And I don't know whether the institutions in Ghana has the Career Services Center for students. I'm not sure. But these are places you have to go that you can gain the knowledge to be able to work on your CV, So I think that is the approach to go.
But you're hoping to bridge this gap. So tell us, when can we meet you for this event you're planning?
Yeah, it's Legon. We are going across the country. We're starting from Legon campus, Mensa Saba Hall. Tomorrow at 9 to 1 p.m. Yes, that's our time. And then next week, we are going to University of Cape Coast. Then we go to University of Science and Technology.
Do I have to be a student to be a part of the event?
No, you don't need to be a student because...
How do I be a part of it?
Yeah, so our consulting firm is actually focusing more on students and also professionals, right? There are so many professionals that want to realign their career and they want to think about switching their career to another career, right? And then they also want to professionally develop themselves to attract certain higher positions and improve their themselves, So we seek to help these professionals to improve themselves, to be able to attract better jobs, and then also help them in terms if they want to switch their career. And then the students also, we help them to develop their professionals, their professional goals, and then also help them so the strategy is not to help you apply to schools in the US and Canada and all those places. We want to give you the confidence and add value to yourself as a person. And even whether you want to stay in Ghana or to stay in the States, you should be able to do it with confidence, So that is what we seek to do. Then, there's applications and all of that comes in later. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Minta, for joining us here. I would be at that event because I want to know how best I can align myself for international gigs. Even though I am in Ghana, you don't have to leave our shores. But you're still watching News Desk. Now, Africa is our focus today. And let's bring in Thomas Sparrow, because Africa seems to be the focus of German foreign policy this week, with the German foreign minister traveling to Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire in a big conference on the Sahel being organized in Berlin. Now, let's start with the foreign minister's trip. For that, we are joined by Thomas Sparrow, his political correspondent from our partner station, DW in Berlin. We'll bring you that shortly. Thomas will join us shortly after this quick brief.
Welcome to Business on Newsdesk. My name is Winston Taki, and now to our first business story. A development bank of Southern Africa says although its energy investment have been negatively impacted by Ghana's debt restructuring program, it will not walk away from its long-standing partnership with Ghana. The financial institution made significant investment into Sen Power Generation Limited, one of the largest independent power producers, which controls about 10% of Ghana's installed energy capacity. But the power generation project, together with other IPPs, are facing difficulties because of government-planned restructuring of debt amounting to some $1.6 billion. Speaking with Blessed Soga on the sidelines of the 2024 Continental Energy Investment Forum, Chief Risk Officer of DBSA, Info Kubelo, stated that Ghana's economic woes may not last forever.
I've been on the playing in the starting with the SADC and the rest of the continent now going over 25 years. We have massive experience in terms of financing infrastructure projects on the continent. What that means is we can take a lot of what we have learned and apply it. We are a long-term player, so we are not in the space for a couple of years and then we walk away. So we are a long-term player. We are able to go through different cycles of risk on the continent. The one thing that we know is that we do get repaid. On the continent, the investment, we do generate returns that are commensurate, with the risk that we take. So what I'm saying to you is, from time to time, you're going to have this sort of massive risk cycles that are going to come through, but because you take a long-term view and you sort of do thorough work up front in terms of bankability of the projects that you are financing, you're going to see that. One of the very interesting things is recently Moody's came out with a paper that actually shows that Africa has the lowest default rates in terms of project finance. So that has to take place.
And speaking about the risk, Ghana is one of the countries that indeed defaulted on its sovereign debts, and we appear to be in a dire situation now, complicating the crisis for development institutions such as DBSA. Are you looking beyond the economic challenge, peculiar to Ghana, and would you say that you still put your money into that economy?
But this is exactly what I'm saying. You have to take a long-term view. You have to understand that risk goes through cycles, right? And if you are a long-term investor, it means where there are cases of distress, you are able to come in, work out those situations, and come out on the other side. And I can tell you now that the DBSA, having been on the continent for 25 years, for 25 years plus, we have been in this business now for over 40 years. We have gone through different cycles, including the financial crisis earlier in the current century. So what we know is that risk goes through cycles. You have to have the right capitalization. You have to have the right ability to withstand those shocks and come out on the other side with it. And what helps is the credibility of the partners that we work with, right? So if you look at infrastructure and investment infrastructure, you don't have partners that are going to walk away as soon as things become difficult. Yeah, but what I'm saying is this is something that goes through a particular cycle, right? So you don't expect that the situation in Ghana is going to be here forever. And as things stand now, we know that there's a lot of work that is being done with funders in Ghana. We know that there's a lot of work that is being done with international funding agencies. We know that the IMF is involved. We know that there are other people that are playing in there. And the government of Ghana has been very cooperative in terms of trying to sort out the problems.
Meanwhile, Sub-Saharan Africa remains the only part of the world which has majority of its population without access to electricity. According to the World Bank, some 600 million people in the region lack access to electricity and clean cooking technology. Ghana is also experiencing its fair share of the crisis due to liquidity issues, which has created instability in the energy sector. However, Ghana and other African delegates attending this year's Continental Energy Investment Summit are hopeful that more funding will be raised to ensure energy security in Africa. There is more.
As Africa continues to grapple with its energy security, stakeholders are converging in South Africa for the Continental Energy Investment Forum. Under the auspices of the South African Electrotechnical Export Council, this inward buying mission is seeking to provide respite to the energy needs of the continent.
The African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Ghana, working with other partners and of course ourselves as member states, identified 4 high potential sectors for development in Africa. And I think we spoke about the 600 million people on this continent that don't even have access to energy. If at the base level your everyday person does not have, I think there's something wrong with the way that we are working towards achieving our Pan-African vision.
In spite of the enormity of the challenge, experts say Africa would also require a just transition by focusing on renewable energy.
Required that we utilize renewable energy sources. The African Union has got a position paper on the just energy transition and how we transition for the African continent, which talks to issues such as ensuring that we leave nobody behind. It's a sustainable way in which we do it, and we take into consideration the developmental mandate that we have for our continent.
We'll bring you that story in a subsequent bulletin. That'll be all for business. We'll be back with more news for you after this break. Stay tuned.
You're watching News X. Now, we know Africa seems to be the focus of German foreign policy this week, with the German foreign minister traveling to Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire in a bid to also get together, and also that there was also a big conference. We know the Sahel organized that in Berlin. Let's start with the foreign minister's trip. For that, we're joined by Thomas Sparrow, political correspondent with our partner station, DW. Thomas, I'm hoping to have a clearer connection to you now. Why are these 2 countries chosen for the trip, and what are the overall goals?
Well, as with many trips to Africa, this visit by Foreign Minister Baerbock to Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire is based both on fostering opportunities and at the same time assessing potential risks. If we begin with the opportunities, Germany sees Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire as 2 West African countries that are also important partners in a broader region that has been marked by political and military instability. The German government has said that in times of global tensions, Berlin is not only looking for partners in, let's say, Paris, Washington or London, but also in cities like Dakar or Abidjan. And Foreign Minister Baerbock said she would look at the entire spectrum of relations. That basically means also politically, economically and culturally with both countries. And there's one concrete example that I would like to highlight, because it was a first-hand look at an electric bus project in Dakar, which is supported by an European Union project, and it uses German software. And in Cote d'Ivoire, Germany also stressed the great potential for German investment in areas like renewable energies. But beyond these kinds of examples, it's clear that Baerbock's visit was also about regional tensions.
Now, we'll delve a bit deeper into the potential regional risk in subsequent bulletins. Thank you so much, Thomas, for spending time here on NewsX. My name is Faustina Safo. For more news, please log on to myjoyonline.com. Have a pleasant morning as you enjoy the rest of our programs.